There is an uneasy calm on the streets of Colombo today after Sri Lanka saw unprecedented violence across the length and breadth of the country on Monday, following the resignation of Prime Minister Mahinda Rajapaksa. Heavily armed troops evacuated the outgoing Sri Lankan Prime Minister from his official residence in Colombo after thousands of protesters reportedly breached the main gate. A pre-dawn operation by the army helped to safely evacuate Mahinda and his family. The resignation is the latest concession made by the Rajapaksas in the face of sustained anger and protests. Other members of the Rajapaksa family who previously held seats in the government have also stepped down. The only one remaining is Gotabaya, who is the current president, and has repeatedly said that he will not resign despite the clarion calls of "Gotta go home" by protesters. He now has widespread powers and command over the security forces of the country. An Air Force helicopter allegedly carrying some members of the Rajapaksa family was seen taking off from the police park grounds in Colombo this morning. Meanwhile, people gathered outside a naval base in Trincomalee, a port city on the northeast coast of Sri Lanka, where they suspect former Prime Minister Mahinda and his family are currently in. Opposition parties in the country are now calling for the arrest of Mahinda for inciting violence against peaceful anti-government protesters on Monday that has claimed at least 8 lives and injured around 200.
මේ මිලේච්ඡත්වයට රාජපක්ෂ ජනාධිපතිවරයා රාජපක්ෂ අගමැතිවරයා ප්‍රමුඛ මේ ආණ්ඩුවට සම්බන්ධ සියලුම දෙනා වග කියන්නට ඕන. මේක සැලසුම් සහගත දෙයක්. මේක හිතාමතා කරපු දෙයක්. මේක රාජ්‍ය මිලේච්ඡත්වයේ රාජ්‍ය ත්‍රස්තවාදයේ දේශපාලන ත්‍රස්තවාදයේ ක්‍රියාත්මක කරපු මේවුමක්. ඒ නිසා මේ දෙයට රාජපක්ෂවරු වගකිව යුතුමයි.
Monday's violence was widespread and so protesters set fire to all 3 houses of the outgoing Prime Minister. Homes of other Sri Lankan ministers were also torched and vandalized, as were buses and public property. The violence came to a head after protests spread across the country, drawing people across ethnicities, religions and class. Sri Lanka is currently reeling under its worst economic crisis since independence. The country has suffered months of blackouts and dire shortages of food and fuel. This has triggered massive anti-government protests across the country. And for more on the situation in Sri Lanka, our correspondent Dasunia Thauda, who has been tracking all the updates on Ground Zero, has sent us this report from Colombo.
Exactly 24 hours since tensions flared at this very specific site, which is one of the entrances leading to the temple trees, which was housing former Prime Minister Mahinda Rajapaksa. Investigative officials are now on site collecting evidence as investigations are now underway to understand what exactly transpired yesterday for protests which have been happening for weeks on end, that have been peaceful, to suddenly turn violent yesterday as pro-government protesters clashed with anti-government protesters. Sri Lanka's political crisis is worsening just as much as its economic crisis as we speak. Stay with WION as we bring you the very latest here on ground. Reporting from Colombo, I'm Dasunia Thauda.
Arjuna Ranatunga, a former Sri Lankan cricketer and captain of the 1996 World Cup winning team, reacted to Monday's violence, saying that the police handled the outbreak very badly and that he did not expect peaceful protesters to be attacked. Watch.
This was a protest done by very peaceful, innocent people. And they were the, I will say, middle class or upper middle class people who came onto the road protesting the suffering they go through. But unfortunately, the law has been taken over by some of these groups who has been attacking the houses, attacking the ministers. So that is not the solution for this problem. But unfortunately, this particular incident, I don't know who gave the orders, but it was so unfortunate that the police handled it very badly. If they stop them coming in, this particular incident or what has happened to the country in the last, I will say, 10 hours, shouldn't have happened.
WION is now available in your country. Download the app now and get all the news on the move.